wide receiver class, I mean, look, it was also a kind of a weird, winding, twisting road to get to where they got to. But at the end of the day, this is a heck of a group. I mean, to me, this is one of the 2 to 3 best receiver hauls in the country. And I don't care what the recruiting rankings say. This is an A grade for me. I gave the receivers an A grade. And the only reason I didn't give it an A plus grade is because I think to earn an A plus, you have to have a truly elite player in your class. And I think that's the only thing missing from this receiver haul is just that elite Michael Floyd, Julio Jones, elite kind of top 25 player. And I don't think they got that guy as far as where they are now. They got some guys, however, that could become that. And I think that's another thing I like about this group. But here's what you got, Ryan. Numbers needs met. You needed 4. They wanted 5, but not like they wanted a second running back. They wanted 5 just because, like, hey, let's get greedy kind of thing. And their 5th guy in Dylan Edwards was kind of a hybrid player anyway. He wasn't like a pure receiver. He wasn't a pure running back. He was going to be a hybrid player. So I didn't ding the receiver grade the same way I did the running back grade in full transparency because I think they put more into getting a second back than they put into getting a 5th receiver. It was just kind of like, hey, let's keep loading up. You know what I mean? And so I think they met their need from a number standpoint. I think the talent is good. I graded 2 of these guys out as top 100 players. I grade Rico out as a top 150 player, and I grade Caleb Smith out as a top 250 player. So I think talent-wise, it was very good. And then the third part is the fit thing is important in twofold. One, Ryan, is they all fit the offense. Okay, we can see a clearly defined role for each of them in this offense. But the other part of fit is, do they fit together?
Sure.
And I think that's important. They can all play at least 2 positions, the X, the Z, and the Y. The W. They can all play to at least 2 positions. In Jaden Greathouse's case, I think he can play all 3 to a degree. I think Braylon James could play all 3. I think Rico could play 2. I think Caleb Smith could play 2. And so I think that's important that they can play together. You can get these 4 guys in a rotation easily if that's your top 4 receivers. And I think that's a very important part of this conversation when looking at them. And then you throw in Jeremiah Love, who brings the pass game emphasis. Your pass game got a huge influx of talent in this class. And at receiver specifically, it's hard to imagine it being a whole lot better, with the exception of it could have got better if you'd have landed like that elite top of the board guy. Right. Outside of that, it's hard to argue with what this group ended up being. And the other thing is, you went into Texas to do it, which is going to hopefully open up a pipeline in future years. And you held on to these guys. It really is a heck of a class, in my opinion.
Well, I think the fit together is the biggest thing for me, Brian, and I'm glad you hit on that so well. It is the fact that I think of it like a team like Clemson, for instance, right? You have good players at receiver, but they're all the same kind of guy, right? Like you have Joseph Ngata and Bo Collins and Dakari Collins. They're all 6'3 plus skyscrapers that need to play in the boundary. Like that's what they need to do. That's the type of players they are. Notre Dame got players that have very different skill sets. And some people, I'm sure, will look at that and be like, well, are they too different? And I would say, absolutely not. I wrote an article about this morning about how you got a guy like a Braylon James who's 6'3", 185 pounds, 4'4" something verified, 4'47" verified in the 40-yard dash. Like he can play in the boundary, he can play outside to the field, and he can do those types of things because vertically he can beat you, and he's flexible. He has all those traits. Jaden Greathouse, he's going to look different into the boundary than Braylon James is going to be, because Braylon James is going to stack you and get on top of you very quickly. But Jaden Greathouse, with the size and the back shoulder ability that he has, he can play that position. I think that he legitimately, and I think you said this as well, I think he can play all 3 spots, Jaden Greathouse. You could throw him in the slot. You could throw him to the field. I don't love him outside to the field a ton, but I think he can do that. But in the boundary, absolutely, with the size and physicality he has. Caleb Smith is a guy that doesn't get talked about a ton, because he was kind of a late guy into the class, and he's the lesser ranked guy as far as the big 4, but he's a guy that his skill set is one that you haven't had enough of at Notre Dame. Like you've needed that guy that can make plays in space, that can be a true slot type, that can work and manage the traffic in the middle of the field and just, work after the catch. Like you've needed that type of football player. And then, oh, by the way, you got top 150 caliber football player, Rico Flores, who is one of the most productive wide receivers in the country playing at a very good high school in Folsom, California, against very good competition. And by the way, he could play all around. He can do some stuff inside and out as well. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, Brian, is because I agree with you. None of those guys are slam dunk elite players right now. No doubt. I agree 100%. But they all have varying skill sets that fit well together. And you got talent that now can be utilized in this offense so comparably well to one another, right? Like they can work off of one another and you can give so many different looks. So I'm looking and I'm like, who ends up being the best receiver in this class? And we've talked about this, right? Depending on who you ask, some people would say Jaden Greathouse. Some people would say Braylon James. Some people would say Caleb Smith. Some people would say Rico Flores. And that's why you know it is a complete and very good haul at wide receiver, because you have four good football players at the end of the day. And if they develop properly and they're used together well, that could be your wide receiver group for the future right there. That's the group where you say there's interchangeableness to a degree, there's varying skill sets, and that's the type of wide receiver group that we need to be a championship level team. Guys that can work together well and can make plays all over the field.
I think too, when you look at it, like as I look individually, Ryan, I just, you mentioned Caleb Smith. They needed an after the catch guy. We were begging for that last year. They needed an after catch guy, and he is that. But he's not just that. You know, he's a guy that can run routes. He's a really nice route runner. Rico Flores, really precise route runner. One of the best just pure route runners in the class. You know, you look at Jaden Greathouse. He's that volume guy, that volume pass catcher, that guy that can go out there in a game where you just need a guy to go out there and catch 10 balls because they're just the way that it is, and catching traffic and outplay people with the ball and use his strength and go out there. And that's why my comp for him was Juju Smith-Schuster, as far as like kind of the role I see him being, that volume guy. Mm-hmm. Even though he's not a burner and a home run hitter speed-wise, he can hit home runs. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then you've got Braylon James, who is probably the most raw guy of the group, but the tools are outstanding. And you know, so like if you were to grade the four receivers just on current grade, Braylon James might be third. You know, but when you add the upside grade into it and the athletic traits, he's number one in my view. And I know you'd go with Greathouse, but it's a good argument to have because they're both really good players. And so I love the individual talent of these players, and they add things that Notre Dame needs more of. Who was the receiver that you looked at this year and said, boy, that guy is just physically, you can't guard him? None of them. Even Tobias is not that way. Tobias is long and fast, and he's a great talent. Dion could be that guy. I think Dion could eventually be that guy, but he wasn't this year. They need more of that. They need more of that guy that just physically you're just going to have a hard time guarding even when he's covered. You know, he's not as big as Chase Claypool, but a very similar role to what Chase Claypool had for Notre Dame in 2019, which is like, dude, he's covered. Just throw it up and give him a chance. You know, and he can, even though he's only 6'1.5", 6'2", he plays a lot bigger than that. But he also is a good route runner. So just I love this group of guys. It's a really good, it's a really talented group, and a group that I think Jaden Greathouse can help you right away. I guess that's the final need they had. You needed guys that can come in and play right away. I think Jaden for sure can come in and play right away. I don't be shocked if Rico Flores is able to come in and play right away either. His feel for the game is outstanding. Like he is a smart football player. He's a better athlete than some people give him credit for. He's not a burner. He's a good athlete, but he's a guy that knows how to play. He's smart. He's really good pass catcher. Like he's just great hands, catches the ball away from his body, great concentration and focus. Smart, plays from kind of a pro style type of high school offense. So I think there'd be a natural transition to what he's not coming from a Texas air raid high school where he runs 3 routes. Rico runs a lot of routes in high school, Ryan. And so he's a kid that I can see play right away. I think Caleb Smith could potentially find a role early on if you needed him to. And then Braylon James needs the most technical work, but a smart coach is going to say, I got to find a way to use that speed, right? Yes. Like, okay, I know he only knows how to run 3 routes. Okay, then put him in there and run those 3 routes and throw him a deep ball or 2. I think all these kids have to different abilities and different volume, can be kids that can come in right away. Now, all of them won't, most likely, but they all can, and that's what this staff also needed. That's the final piece to what gave me an A grade is if they got 4 incredibly talented players on the same level of these guys, but none of them were all projects, I would probably ding this class a little bit, because the need was, you need guys that you need at least one or two guys can come and play right now. Even
Right.
with the transfer Caleb Smith coming in, you still need one or two guys that can come in and help you as freshmen. And I think this class got that. For sure got that.
And you know what isn't as quantifiable, but I think is really important too, Brian, is that I think that group, that 4-man group, brings a lot of swagger to the game too, right? They bring a lot of confidence. It's something where when you are covered and you need to make a play, you need that confidence to know that you can still make a play, right? And I think that Jaden Greathouse is a kid that the moment he steps on campus, right or wrong, is going to think that he's the best receiver in the room. And you need that, man. You need it. Braylon James is going to think that he is the most talented dude in that room and that no one can guard him. He's going to think that. Rico Flores is a very confident kid, coming back from, I know it wasn't a serious injury, obviously, right? So those are 3 kids that are all enrolling early, by the way, that are going to have an opportunity to fight for early playing time, because not only are they all talented in their own unique ways, but it's not going to be too big for them, right? Because we talk about it. Why do you want to go into Texas outside of getting great talents, right? Because those guys live for this stuff, man. You think Jaden Greathouse, after playing for Austin Westlake, is going to come to Notre Dame and be like starstruck? Heck no, man. He's going to come in and be like, I'm the dude here, man. Like, what are you talking about? Rico Flores played at Folsom High School. He's playing De La Salle and all those cats every week. Like, he's not afraid of competition. Are you crazy? Those guys have been at 2 of the better schools in the country. I mean, Braylon James has been playing against guys like Jaden Greathouse on a week-to-week basis. Like, they're not afraid of competition. They're going to come ready to play. Caleb Smith, who's the underrated guy of the group, is a Texas kid as well. So those guys are not afraid of competition. They're going to come in and they're going to compete. How will it end up year 1? No idea. But all I know is it's not going to be like that because they were gun shy or they were starstruck and that they just fell to the backgrounds, right? They're not going to be guys that the first year in camp, you're going to be like, oh, they're just kind of meandering to the back of the line in every drill, right? Like Jaden Greathouse is going to be jumping up there, man, to be like, I'm a dude right now. Like, let's do this, right? Like, that's what sold me on a guy like him. But I think that can't be, look, it's not quantifiable in the sense that you're talking about what their grade is now, what their upside grade is, and that's how rankings should be made. But I look at it and I say, but also I think a big thing, especially at the wide receiver position, is you got to think you're a dude, man. You got to be ready to compete. And I think that you got dudes in this class that come from great programs, come from great regions of football, great states, and they'll be ready to come up to South Bend, Indiana and compete. And I think that's all you need, man. That's all you want in this type of situation.